President Yoon Ji-shin stood before the cameras. Her speech would be broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system and beyond. She had written it herself, refusing help from speechwriters. These words needed to come from her heart. "My fellow humans," she began. "For 200 years we have watched the galaxy tear itself apart with war. We stayed out of those conflicts. We were called cowards. We were called weak. We accepted those insults because we knew the truth. We weren't weak. We were wise. We chose peace because peace allows life to flourish." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But now we face something different. The Varkan don't want our resources. They don't want to rule us. They want us dead. All of us, every human, every alien, every living thing in this galaxy. This is not a war of choice. This is survival. And we will not go quietly into extinction." Her voice grew stronger. "Starting today, Earth mobilizes for war. Every able person will be called upon. Every ship will be armed. Every resource will be dedicated to our defense. We stayed out of their wars because they were fighting over things that could be negotiated. You cannot negotiate with extinction. You can only fight it, and fight we will." The speech ended with 8 words that would echo through history. "We are humanity. We will not be erased." Deep beneath the Gobi Desert, massive hangar doors opened for the first time in decades. Inside, 200 warships sat in perfect rows. They were sleek, advanced, and completely unknown to the public. Admiral Tae-hyun stood in the command center of the secret facility. He had overseen this project for 30 years, hoping it would never be needed. "The contingency fleet is ready, sir," reported Captain Minsuk, who commanded the secret base. "All ships are fully operational. Crews are standing by." "How did we keep this hidden?" asked Commodore Daewon, who had just learned about the fleet's existence. Tae-hyun smiled slightly. "We didn't advertise it. Every year, we told the public we were mothballing old ships and scrapping them. We did scrap some, but we also built new ones, better ones, ships designed from studying every war we observed. We learned from everyone else's mistakes. The ships of the contingency fleet were unlike anything Earth had publicly displayed. They combined human innovation with lessons learned from watching galactic conflicts for 2 centuries. Fast, heavily armed, and designed to work together in ways the Varkan wouldn't expect. We called it the contingency fleet," Tae-hyun explained. "For the contingency that someone would force us to fight. That day has arrived." Colonel Sua Huang ran the training program at Earth's Marine Corps headquarters. She had studied every recorded battle, every tactic, every strategy the galaxy had to offer. Now she had 2 weeks to turn civilians into soldiers. "Listen up," she shouted at the assembled recruits. "You think you know what war is. You've seen movies. You've played games. Forget all of that. War is chaos. War is confusion. War is watching your friend die and not having time to mourn because you'll be dead too if you stop moving." The recruits looked terrified. "Good. Fear kept you alive. But we have advantages," Sua continued. "The Varkan think we're weak because we've never fought. They think they know everything about warfare. They don't know us. They don't know human stubbornness. They don't know what we're capable of when we're cornered. We're going to teach them." Dr. Hannah Park worked without sleep in her laboratory. She studied every piece of data about the Varkan. Their ships, their weapons, their tactics. There had to be a weakness. Everything had a weakness. "Doctor, you need to rest," her assistant said. "I'll rest when we're not facing extinction," Hannah replied, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. Then she saw it, a pattern in how the Varkan fought. They were incredibly efficient, but that efficiency came from rigid thinking. They had one way of doing things. They never adapted. They never changed tactics because they had never needed to. "They think they're fighting insects," Hannah muttered. "Insects are predictable. They respond to stimuli in predictable ways. The Varkan expect us to be predictable." She ran to Admiral Tae-hyun's office. "I know how to fight them. We use unpredictability as a weapon. We do things that make no tactical sense. We confuse them. We make them adapt, and adaptation slows them down." "Explain," Tae-hyun demanded. "Their ships move in perfect formation, perfect coordination. It's beautiful and terrifying, but it requires constant communication and predictable responses from their enemies. If we attack from random angles, retreat when we should advance, advance when we should retreat, we break their rhythm. We turn their greatest strength into a weakness." Tae-hyun smiled. "Chaos tactics. Controlled chaos," Hannah corrected. "We look random, but we're not. We're creating confusion on purpose. The Admiral immediately sent her findings to all fleet commanders. Jiwan Bayek stood in the retrofit bay on Luna Station. Around her, alien ships from a dozen species were being upgraded with human weapons and systems. The galaxy's survivors were contributing what they could. It wasn't much, but it was something. A Keltheran engineer worked beside her, installing a new targeting system on his people's last remaining warship. "Why are you helping us?" he asked, "and this is not your fight. The Varkan are coming for everyone, but they're coming for Earth last. You could evacuate. You could run." Jiwan looked at him. "Where would we run? And even if we could escape, what kind of people would we be if we ran? You're our friends." That means something to humans. The Keltheran's three eyes showed confusion. "Friends? We mocked you. We called you cowards." "Yeah, you did," Jiwan agreed. "And you were wrong. Now you know better. That's what matters." Commodore Daewon took command of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. His mission was to slow the Varkan advance while the main fleet assembled. 20 ships against a force that numbered in the thousands. The math was terrible. "Sir, we're receiving tactical data from intelligence," his communications officer reported. "Dr. Park's chaos theory protocols." Daewon read through the documents. It was insane. It violated every rule of conventional warfare. It was perfect. "Transmit these tactics to all ships in our fleet. We're going to hurt them." His small fleet hit the Varkan at the Arcturus system. Instead of forming a defensive line, they scattered. Instead of retreating when damaged, they advanced. Instead of protecting their weak points, they exposed them as bait. The Varkan ships hesitated. For the first time, they encountered an enemy that didn't behave as expected. The hesitation only lasted 3 seconds, but in space combat, 3 seconds was an eternity. Daewon's ships destroyed 7 Varkan vessels in the opening engagement. They lost 4 of their own, but they had proven something important. "The Varkan could be hurt. Fall back," Daewon ordered. "We've done what we came to do. Time to let them chase us." The Varkan pursued exactly as planned. They were angry now. Angry prey fought differently than terrified prey, and the Varkan didn't know how to handle anger. Back on Earth, young pilot Myung-Hoon Song sat in the cockpit of his fighter. He was 23 years old and had never expected to fight in a war. His grandfather had flown in Earth's atmospheric defense force during the Unification Wars. Now it was his turn to carry on that legacy. "All pilots, this is Admiral Tae-hyun. The Varkan main fleet will reach Jupiter's orbit in 48 hours. This is not a drill. This is not an exercise. This is the moment we've prepared for. Every human who has ever lived has led to this point. Don't let them down. Don't let each other down. And most importantly, don't let those alien bastards think we're easy prey. Show them what humanity can do." Myung-Hoon checked his weapon systems. His fighter was small, fast, and packed with enough firepower to crack a battleship's shields. He wouldn't survive the battle. He knew that. But he would make his death count. The contingency fleet moved into position around Jupiter. 200 human warships formed the core. Around them, the Allied fleet assembled. Keltheran ships, Valtrosian cruisers, vessels from 30 different species, all that remained of civilizations nearly destroyed by their own wars. Ambassador Yuna coordinated the combined fleet from the command ship Unity. "All vessels, confirm ready status." One by one, ships reported in. Humans, Keltherans, Valtrosians, Valdari. Species that had fought each other for centuries now stood together. "Fleet is ready, Ambassador," reported the tactical officer. Yuna looked at the sensor display. The Varkan fleet was massive. It blotted out the stars. But behind her, Jupiter's moons held defensive platforms. Earth's orbital stations bristled with weapons. And the contingency fleet was the most advanced military force humanity had ever assembled. "All ships," Yuna said calmly. "The Varkan wanted to cleanse this galaxy. Let's show them they picked the wrong species to start with. Engage when ready." The Battle of Jupiter was about to begin. Commander Insu Park worked in Earth's intelligence division, deep underground in Seoul. His job was to identify threats before they became problems. For 3 months, he had been researching the unknown fleet. What he found terrified him. "Admiral, you need to see this," Insu said over the secure channel to Admiral Tae-hyun. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen. "What did you find?" Insu pulled up ancient records, some over 10,000 years old. The ships match a pattern in archaeological databases. They belonged to a species called the Varkan. They were exiled from this galaxy after what the records call the Great Purge. 27 civilizations united to drive them out. The records say they killed for pleasure. They didn't want resources or territory. They just wanted everything else dead. That was 10,000 years ago, Taehyun said. Maybe they've changed. Sir, I hope you're right. But the Valdari remember them. So do 3 other ancient species. They're all terrified. One of the Valdari historians sent me a message. It just said they don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They cleanse. Admiral Taehyun's expression grew grim. Send everything you have to all fleet commanders. Alert the Galactic Council. We need to prepare for the worst. The worst came faster than anyone expected. The Varkan fleet struck the Outer Rim colonies first. Captain Jae-hwan Oh was hauling cargo in his civilian freighter when he received a distress call from a small mining colony. He changed course to help, but what he found made him sick. The colony was burning. Every building destroyed. Bodies scattered across the landing pad. Jae-hwan's sensors detected no survivors, not one. Over 3,000 people gone. Then his ship's alarm screamed. A Varkan vessel appeared on his scanners. It was hunting him. Computer maximum speed now, Jae-hwan shouted. His freighter wasn't built for combat or speed, but fear gave him clarity. He flew through an asteroid field that would have been suicide under normal circumstances. The Varkan ship followed, firing weapons that turned asteroids into dust. Jae-hwan barely made it to a jump point. As his ship entered faster than light travel, he recorded everything his sensors had captured. The images would haunt him forever. The Varkan didn't just kill, they erased. They left nothing behind. Dr. Hana Park studied Jae-hwan's recordings in her lab. She had seen war before. She had seen cruelty. But this was different. The Varkan attacked with perfect efficiency. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Like machines programmed for one purpose, extinction. They're not conquerors, she told Admiral Taehyun during the emergency conference. Conquerors want something. Territory, resources, slaves. The Varkan want nothing except for us to stop existing. They're not fighting a war. They're cleaning their house of pests they don't want. Can we reason with them? Ambassador Yuna asked. She had spent her career negotiating peace. Surely there was a way. Hana shook her head. I don't think they see us as beings capable of reason. We're insects to them. You don't negotiate with insects. You exterminate them. Reports flooded in from across the Outer Rim. Colony after colony went silent. Millions dead. The Varkan moved methodically, leaving no survivors. They didn't even take time to study their victims. They simply killed and moved on. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Ambassador Yuna stood among representatives of hundreds of species. Most of them were the same people who had asked Earth to join their war 5 years ago. Now they looked desperate and afraid. The Keltheran representative spoke first. We need a unified defense. The Varkan are heading toward our core worlds. If we don't stop them, billions will die. We're too weak, the Valtrosian delegate said. Her voice cracked with emotion. Our war destroyed our fleets. We have nothing left to fight with. One by one, representatives admitted the same truth. The galaxy's major powers had spent their strength fighting each other. Now, when a real threat appeared, they were helpless. What about Earth? Someone asked. Everyone turned to look at Yuna. She felt the weight of their stares. Earth has maintained a strong defense fleet. We can contribute ships and personnel, but we cannot fight this alone. We need everyone working together. Together? The Keltheran laughed bitterly. We can barely feed our people. Our shipyards are ruins. Our soldiers died in a pointless war. We have nothing to contribute except bodies to add to the Varkan's count. The meeting descended into despair. Yuna watched species that had fought each other for centuries now united in fear. But fear without strength was useless. On the Restoration, Commodore Dae-won prepared his crew for combat. Most of them had never fired a weapon in anger. Earth ships were designed for defense and peacekeeping, not war. Listen up, he addressed his crew over the ship's communication system. I know many of you joined Earth's fleet thinking you'd never see combat. I hope the same thing, but hope doesn't stop the Varkan. Starting now, we train. Every department, every shift, every person. We train until we're ready. Lieutenant Sujin, who had cried watching the Valtrosian War years ago, now stood at the weapons station. Sir, are we really going to fight? Yes, Dae-won said simply. Because if we don't, who will? The Varkan continued their advance. They hit 3 more colonies in a single day. Each time the pattern was the same. Total destruction, no survivors, no communication. Just death. Then they sent their message. A Varkan probe ship appeared in orbit around Mars. It didn't attack. It just broadcast. The message went out in every known language, including English, Korean, Mandarin, and hundreds of alien tongues. Your system has been marked for purification. Your species will be cleansed. Resistance is irrelevant. Your extinction is inevitable. Prepare. The message played on repeat. People on Earth, Mars, the moon colonies, and space stations all heard it. Panic spread like fire. Admiral Tae-hyun stood in Earth Defense Command watching the probe orbit Mars. His hands clenched into fists. Get President Yoon-ji on the line now. President Yoon-ji Shin had led Earth for 7 years. She was elected on a platform of peace and prosperity. She had never expected to face this. How long until they arrive? She asked. The probe is just watching us. The main fleet is 3 weeks away if they maintain current speed. Tae-hyun replied. Can we evacuate Earth? Where would we go? They're cleansing the entire galaxy. There's nowhere to hide. Yoon-ji looked at the people gathered in her office. Military commanders, scientists, diplomats, all looking to her for answers she didn't have. Admiral, give me an honest assessment. Can we win? Tae-hyun met her eyes. I don't know. We've never fought before. Not like this. But I know one thing. If we run, we die tired. If we surrender, we die on our knees. If we fight, at least we die standing. That's not encouraging, Yoon-ji said. No, ma'am. But it's the truth. Yoon-ji stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the city of Geneva. People going about their lives, not yet understanding how close death was. Children playing. Couples walking hand in hand. Life continuing as if tomorrow was guaranteed. I didn't want to be a war president, she said quietly. I wanted to be remembered for peace. You will be, Ambassador Yuna said. She had returned from the Galactic Council. You'll be remembered for defending peace, for standing between the innocent and those who would destroy them. That's worth more than any treaty. Yoon-ji turned to face her advisors. Send out the call. Mobilize the reserves. Activate all defense protocols, and prepare a message for me to deliver to Earth and all of humanity. What should we tell them? Someone asked. Yoon-ji's voice was steady and strong. The truth. We're going to war. Captain Dae-won sat in the command chair of his ship, watching the battle unfold on the massive screen before him. Thousands of ships fired at each other in the dark space near the Orion Nebula. Blue and red energy beams crossed the void. Ships exploded into bright flashes that faded quickly into nothing. He had been watching this war for 3 months now, and every day brought more death, Captain. We're receiving another transmission from the Valtrosian Empire, said Lieutenant Kyung-soo from the communication station. The young officer looked uncomfortable. They're asking us to join their side again. Dae-won rubbed his tired eyes. What are they offering this time? Advanced shield technology and exclusive trading rights to their core systems, Kyung-soo replied. Before Dae-won could respond, another officer spoke up. Sir, the Keltheran Coalition is also sending a message. They're offering military alliance and access to their quantum drive research. Dr. Hana Park stepped onto the bridge. She was the chief scientist aboard the Meridian's watch and served as the diplomatic advisor. Her face showed the same exhaustion everyone felt. Let me guess. Both sides want us to pick them and fight their war. Yes, Doctor, Dae-won said quietly. Hana moved to stand beside his chair. She pulled up a holographic display that showed casualty numbers. 17 billion dead in the past 3 months. 42 colonies completely destroyed. 6 entire species extinct. And for what? A dispute over mining rights in a sector neither side actually needs. Dae-won had heard this speech before, but it never got easier to accept. Somewhere out there people were dying. His ship had weapons. His crew was trained. They could make a difference. But Earth's orders were clear. Send the standard response to both sides, he ordered. Earth appreciates the offers but maintains its position of neutrality in all galactic conflicts. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet beeping of instruments. Everyone there knew what that message meant. They were saying no while people died. Back on Earth, Admiral Tae-hyun Choi stood in the Emergency Defense Council chamber. The room was filled with military leaders, government officials, and diplomatic staff. Everyone was arguing. The noise echoed off the metal walls. We cannot continue to stand aside. General Wu Jin slammed his fist on the table. We have the power to end this war. Our technology is more advanced than both sides combined. We could save billions of lives by taking billions more. Ambassador Yuna stood calmly despite the chaos around her. Every war we've studied ends the same way. The winners and losers both lose. Their economies collapse. Their people starve. Disease spreads. The aftermath is always worse than the war itself. She's right. Admiral Taehyun spoke with authority that silenced the room. I've read every report from the past 200 years. Species that involve themselves in galactic wars spend the next century recovering. Some never recover at all. Earth has stayed out of these conflicts and we've grown stronger while others weakened themselves. So we're cowards hiding behind policy? A young colonel named Minki stood up. His voice shook with anger. My grandfather fought in the Unification Wars. He believed humanity stood for something. What do we stand for now, profit? The Admiral's face hardened. We stand for survival. We stand for our own people. When you've commanded as long as I have, you'll understand that sometimes the greatest courage is knowing when not to fight. Ambassador Yuna activated a large display screen. Images of destroyed worlds appeared. Cities in ruins, refugees fleeing on broken ships, children crying in emergency shelters. This is what war looks like. Every single time. No exceptions. The Valtrosians and Keltherans chose this path. We did not. Our responsibility is to Earth and humanity, not to fix problems other species created. Dr. Hana's voice came through the communication system from the Meridian's watch. I'm transmitting updated casualty projections. If this war continues at the current pace, both civilizations will be unable to sustain their populations within 8 months. They'll face mass starvation regardless of who wins. The room studied the data in silence. The numbers were staggering. And if we intervene? Asked Minister Sora Nam, who oversaw foreign affairs. Our models show intervention would extend the war by helping one side. Hana replied. Total casualties would actually increase. The only way to reduce deaths is for both sides to stop fighting. We cannot force that choice. Admiral Taehyun stood up straight. I'm recommending we maintain our current position. Earth will not join this war. We will continue monitoring and prepare humanitarian aid for when the fighting ends. That is my decision. The vote was called. The policy of non-intervention continued. Aboard the Meridian's watch, Daewon walked through the observation deck. Through the large windows, he could see the distant flashes of the battle. Lieutenant Sujin stood at the window staring out at the war. Captain, she said quietly, how do we live with this? Watching them die? Daewon had asked himself that question 1,000 times. By remembering that their war is not our responsibility. We didn't start it. We can't stop it. All we can do is survive and help rebuild when it's over. My academy instructors taught us that the strong have a duty to protect the weak, Sujin said. They do, Daewon agreed. But wisdom is knowing the difference between protecting and interfering. We protect humanity. We protect Earth. Everything else is beyond our control. A massive explosion lit up the darkness as a Valtrosian carrier was destroyed. Thousands of lives ended in that single moment. Sojin turned away from the window, tears on her face. Daewon wanted to comfort her, but he had no comfort to give. Instead, he returned to the bridge and continued his watch. The war would go on. Ships would die. Civilizations would burn, and Earth would observe, record, and wait for the peace that must eventually come. In her quarters, Dr. Hana recorded her daily log. Day 93 of observation. The war shows no signs of ending. Both sides have lost the ability to achieve meaningful victory, yet neither will surrender. This is the nature of galactic conflict. Pride becomes more important than survival. Honor matters more than life. Earth's policy of neutrality is not cowardice. It is sanity in a galaxy that has gone mad. I only hope we can maintain this wisdom when our turn comes, because eventually every species faces their test. I pray ours is still far in the future. She closed the log and looked at the picture on her desk. It showed Earth from space, blue and beautiful and untouched by war. She intended to keep it that way. The Varkan fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel exactly where Admiral Taehyun predicted. They moved in perfect formation, thousands of ships arranged in geometric patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't instruments of death. Fleet Admiral Daewon Kim, given overall command by unanimous agreement, stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance. He watched the enemy fleet approach with steady eyes. They're not even trying to hide, noted his tactical officer. They're so confident they don't need strategy. Their mistake, Daewon said quietly. All ships hold position. Let them come to us. Let them think they're in control. The Varkan ships accelerated toward Jupiter. Their weapons began charging, ready to sweep aside what they assumed would be weak resistance. They had cleansed 1,000 worlds. What was one more? Now, Day One ordered. Space erupted in chaos. The human fleet didn't form battle lines. They scattered in random directions, moving in patterns that seemed to have no logic. Some ships charged directly at the Varkan. Others retreated at full speed. A few spun in circles, presenting different shield faces every few seconds. The Varkan formation wavered. Their targeting systems couldn't predict where the human ships would be. Their weapons fired at empty space. For the first time in 10,000 years, they faced an enemy that didn't behave according to any recognized pattern. "Quantum mines away," reported the weapons officer. Invisible to sensors, the mines drifted into the Varkan formation. When they detonated, they created pockets of unstable space that tore Varkan ships apart from the inside. 50 ships destroyed in the first minute. The Varkan adapted quickly, as expected. They spread their formation and began firing in wider patterns. But that's when the Allied fleet attacked from Jupiter's moons. Keltharan ships rebuilt with human weapons struck the Varkan flanks. Valtrosian cruisers emerged from behind Jupiter's radiation belt, shields charged and weapons hot. Species that had barely survived their own war now fought with desperate courage. For Kelthara, came the cry over the communications net. For Valtros, answered another voice. For Earth, shouted Myung-hoon's song as his fighter squadron dove into the Varkan formation. The young pilot's hands flew over the controls. His fighter was tiny compared to the Varkan battleships, but size didn't matter when you were faster and smarter. He targeted the connection points where Varkan ships linked their shields together. "Gold Squadron, follow my lead," he shouted. "Hit them where they're joined." 15 fighters followed him through a gap in the Varkan lines. Their weapons fired in perfect coordination, breaking the shield connections. 3 Varkan ships suddenly found themselves exposed. The Defiance's main gun spoke. Beams of concentrated energy punched through Varkan armor like paper. The 3 ships exploded in sequence, their reactors creating a chain reaction that damaged a dozen more vessels. "That's for the mining colony," Daewon said coldly, remembering the images Jaehwan had brought back. But the Varkan were not helpless. They began to adapt to the chaos tactics. Their ships started firing in random patterns too, matching human unpredictability with their own version. "Admiral, they're learning," the tactical officer warned. "Then we change the game again," Daewon replied. He opened a channel to Dr. Hana Park, who was coordinating from a command center on Earth. "Doctor, they've adapted to Phase 1. Initiate Phase 2. From every human ship, a new weapon activated. Psychological warfare transmitters flooded the battlefield with conflicting signals, fake sensor readings, and disruptive communications. The Varkan relied on perfect coordination. The transmitters turned their communication network into chaos. Colonel Sua Huang led the Marine assault teams. Her mission was insane, but that was the point. Nothing about this battle made sense to the Varkan, and that was humanity's advantage. "Boarding shuttles away," she commanded. 20 shuttles launched from various human ships heading directly toward the Varkan world ship, their massive command vessel. The Varkan shot down 16 shuttles, but 4 made it through. They clamped onto the hull and began cutting. "Go, go, go," Sua shouted as the hull breach opened. Marines poured into the Varkan ship. The interior was strange, built for beings twice human size. Everything was dark and cold. But the Marines had trained for this. They moved in small teams, fast and aggressive. "Plant the transmitters," Sua ordered. The Varkan defenders were powerful, but they fought as individuals. They didn't understand teamwork the way humans did. Each Varkan warrior expected to dominate through personal strength. But the Marines fought as units, covering each other, coordinating fire, using tactics the Varkan had never encountered. The Marines planted communication transmitters throughout the Varkan world ship. When activated, these transmitters hijacked the Varkan communication network and broadcast their own tactical commands across the entire fleet. In the command center, a Varkan officer received what he thought was an order from his superior. "Redirect all ships to Sector 7 for concentrated attack." Similar false orders went to hundreds of Varkan ships. Half the fleet turned toward Sector 7. The other half, not receiving the false orders, continued their original course. The perfect formation collapsed into confusion. "Now," Daewon shouted. "All ships, full offensive." The human and allied fleet struck with coordinated fury. Ships that had been running now turned and attacked. Ships that had seemed damaged suddenly revealed they were fine and hit the Varkin with fresh weapons fire. Myung-hoon led another fighter run, this time targeting the Varkin world ship's engines. This is for everyone they killed. His fighters' weapons carved into the massive ship's propulsion systems. Behind him, 30 other fighters added their firepower. The world ship's engines exploded, leaving it dead in space. Colonel Sua and her Marines were still inside when the engines went. The ship shook violently. "Time to leave," she ordered, but the Varkin had trapped them. Blast doors sealed the Marines in. Sua looked at her remaining troops. 37 Marines, all that was left of the 100 who had boarded. "Well," she said with a grim smile, "if we're stuck here, let's make it count. Find the command center. If we're going down, we're taking these bastards with us." The Marines fought their way deeper into the world ship. Every corridor was a battle. Every door hid enemies, but they had something the Varkin didn't understand. They fought for each other. When one Marine fell, 2 others dragged them to safety while the rest provided cover. They reached the command center to find it defended by the Varkin leadership. Massive warriors covered in organic armor, wielding weapons that could tear through bulkheads. "For Earth!" Sua screamed and charged. The battle was brutal and short. Half the Marines died in the first 30 seconds. But the survivors planted explosives throughout the command center and ran. Outside, the space battle raged. The Varkin fleet was losing cohesion. Ships collided with each other. Friendly fire incidents increased. The perfect formation had become a mob. President Yoon Ji-shin watched from Earth's command bunker. She saw the casualty reports climbing. Hundreds of ships destroyed. Thousands dead. But they were winning. Somehow, impossibly, they were winning. Then she did something no one expected. She commandeered a damaged destroyer that was returning to Earth for repairs. "Ma'am, you can't," Admiral Tae-hyun protested. "I'm the president," Yoon-ji said calmly. "I ordered people to die for Earth. I won't do it from a bunker. Get me to that ship." The destroyer Indomitable was barely functional. Half its crew was wounded or dead. Its shields were failing. But President Yoon-ji took the captain's chair. "This is President Shin," she broadcast to the entire fleet. "I'm here with you. I'm fighting with you, and I will die with you if necessary. But we will not lose." The effect was electric. Every human ship fought harder. Every allied ship found new courage. Their leader wasn't hiding. She was with them. Yoon-ji pointed at the Varkin world ship, now crippled and drifting. "Helm set ramming course. Full speed, ma'am," the helmsman protested. "That's an order," she said quietly. "They wanted to cleanse us. Let's show them what it costs." The Indomitable accelerated toward the world ship. Varkin weapons hit it again and again, but it kept coming. At the last moment, Yoon-ji activated the escape pods, sending her crew to safety. But she stayed in the captain's chair as the Indomitable crashed into the Varkin command vessel at near light speed. The explosion was visible from Earth. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire that briefly outshone Jupiter itself. Colonel Sua and her Marines were evacuating when the impact came. The blast wave threw them out of the disintegrating world ship. Emergency beacons activated automatically. Admiral Tae-hyun, wounded and bloodied but still commanding, ordered every available ship to rescue the floating Marines. "Find them. Find all of them." The president gave her life for this. "Don't let anyone else die today." The Varkin fleet, leaderless and confused, began to break. Without their world ship broadcasting coordination commands, they couldn't maintain formation. Human and allied ships pressed the advantage ruthlessly. "They're running," someone shouted on the command channel. "No," Daewon said. "They're fleeing. There's a difference. Chase them. Don't let a single ship escape. They need to know what happens when they threaten humanity." 5 years had passed since the Valtrosian-Keltheran War ended. Both empires lay in ruins, their economies shattered and their people starving. The galaxy was full of broken worlds and desperate survivors, but Earth had kept its promise. Director Hyun-woo Kang stood on the surface of Kelthera Prime, the former capital world of the Coalition. The city around him was slowly being rebuilt. Human construction teams worked alongside Keltheran survivors, raising new buildings from the rubble. Medical stations provided free care. Food distribution centers fed thousands every day, all of it funded by Earth. Director Kang, a Keltheran elder, approached him. The alien's skin was pale blue and his 3 eyes showed deep gratitude. "Your people have given us hope. We thought we would die in the ashes of our choices. Instead, you came with help, not judgment. Hyunwoo felt uncomfortable with the praise. We're simply doing what anyone should do. The war is over. Now comes the harder work of healing. The Keltheran elder touched his chest in their gesture of respect. For 5 years, Earth watched us destroy ourselves. You refused to join either side. We called you cowards. We said humans had no honor. We were wrong. You knew what we could not see. War has no winners. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on 17 different worlds. Earth's Reconstruction Aid Program had become the largest humanitarian effort in galactic history. Ships carrying supplies traveled constantly. Engineers, doctors, and teachers volunteered by the thousands. The cost was enormous, but humanity paid it without complaint. Commodore Daewon Kim, promoted after his years of observation duty, now commanded a fleet of aid vessels. His ship, the Restoration, orbited a Valtrosian colony world. He watched the supply shuttles make their runs to the surface. Commodore, you have a visitor, his communications officer announced. A young engineer named Jiwon Baek entered the bridge. She wore the standard Earth Aid uniform, but it was covered in dust and grease. She had been on the surface for 6 months, working 18-hour days to restore the colony's power grid. Commodore Kim, I wanted to thank you personally before I returned to the surface, Jiwon said. The generators you sent last week are exactly what we needed. The children's hospital has full power now. Daewon smiled. I saw your request. It was marked urgent. 3 kids were on life support running off backup batteries, Jiwon explained. Her eyes were tired but bright with purpose. They're all stable now. Their parents cried when the lights came on. That's why we're here, Daewon said. This is what strength should be used for. Building, not destroying, Jiwon nodded. I've made friends down there. Real friends. The Valtrosians were our enemies in name only. We never actually fought them. Now I understand why. They're just people trying to survive, same as us. After Jiwon left, Daewon thought about her words. The galaxy had changed its view of humanity. Where once they saw weakness, they now saw wisdom. Where they saw cowardice, they now recognized restraint. Earth's refusal to fight had earned more respect than any military victory could have achieved. On Earth, Minister So-Ra Nam sat in her office reviewing reports. The news was good. Trade agreements with 14 species, cultural exchange programs established, Earth's technology being shared freely to help rebuild. Humanity's reputation had never been higher, but one report troubled her. It came from deep space monitoring stations at the edge of known space. Strange signals, unusual energy readings, ships moving in the darkness beyond the galactic rim. She called Admiral Tae-hyun Choi. Admiral, have you seen the long-range sensor data from stations 12 through 18? I have. Tae-hyun's voice was serious. We've been tracking those signals for 3 months. We don't know what they are. Should we be concerned? So-Ra asked. Unknown ships using unknown technology in unexplored space? Yes, we should be concerned. But we don't have enough information to act on. I've ordered increased monitoring. So-Ra closed the report but couldn't shake her unease. Something was out there, something old. The Galactic Peace Prize ceremony took place on the neutral station of Harmony Point. Ambassador Yuna Lee stood on the stage, accepting the award on behalf of Earth. Representatives from hundreds of species watched. Many owed their survival to human aid. Earth does not deserve this honor, Yuna said into the microphone. We simply did what was necessary. When your civilizations fought, we stayed neutral because we understood that taking sides would only cause more death. When the fighting ended, we helped rebuild because that is what neighbors should do. We are not heroes. We are simply humans trying to make the galaxy a little better. The applause was thunderous. Species that had once mocked humanity now stood and cheered. Back on his ship, Commodore Daewon received a priority transmission. It was marked with the highest security level. He opened it in his private ready room. Admiral Tae-hyun's face appeared on the screen. Commodore, I'm sending this to all fleet commanders. We have a situation developing. Several ancient civilizations have contacted us with warnings. They're saying something is coming, something they call the old enemy. They won't give us details, but they're all saying the same thing. Our peace will be tested. Tested how? Daewon asked. They don't know. Or they won't say. But one of them, the Valdari Elder Council, sent a message specifically for humanity. It said, "You have stayed out of war by choice. Soon you will face those who offer no choice. Prepare." Daewon felt cold despite the warm air in his ready room. What does that mean? I don't know, Taehyun admitted. But I'm recalling all deep space observation ships. I want our fleet consolidated and ready. Something is wrong. I can feel it. 2 weeks later, long-range sensors detected them. A fleet of ships unlike anything in the galactic database. They moved in perfect formation, heading toward inhabited space. The ships were massive, ancient in design but using technology that made modern vessels look primitive. Ji-won was working on the surface when the alert came through. Emergency broadcast told all off-world personnel to return to their ships immediately. She looked at the Valtrosian children playing near the hospital she had helped repair. They were laughing, healthy and alive. What's happening? Asked her Valtrosian friend Kalesh. I don't know, Ji-won replied honestly. But I have to go. Please get everyone to the shelters, just in case. As the shuttle lifted off, carrying her back to the restoration, Ji-won looked down at the colony. 5 years of peace. 5 years of rebuilding. 5 years of hope. She prayed it wouldn't end. Director Hyunwoo received the same alert on Kelthera Prime. He immediately ordered all Earth personnel to prepare for evacuation, but the Keltheran elder who had thanked him months ago came running. Director, what is wrong? Why are your people leaving? Unknown ships approaching from deep space, Hyunwoo explained. We don't know if they're hostile, but we need to be careful. The elder's face showed fear. We cannot defend ourselves. The war took everything. If these ships attack, we are helpless. Hyunwoo put a hand on the alien's shoulder. If they attack anyone, Earth will respond. You're not alone anymore. He said the words automatically, but as soon as they left his mouth, he realized what he had promised. Earth had stayed out of war for 2 centuries. But something had changed. These people weren't strangers anymore. They were friends, and friends didn't abandon each other. The unknown fleet continued its approach, silent and ominous in the darkness of space.